Hi, everyone. We are a little bit away from getting to the sports bar, so appreciate the last session of the 2-day conference. And what a conference it's been. There's been so many great conversations, and you can just see the crowd outside really connecting. So it's been really great. Meghan, Robert, Colby, really excited to be here. I've spent my entire career behind the curtain of professional sports, NFL, NHL, NBA, and this is a different subject matter that I'm super excited to chat about. So I'll let the crew up here introduce themselves. Meghan, I'll start with you.
Meghan Chayka, co-founder and CEO of Stathletes. We started about 15 years ago, incorporated, trying to collect data before Moneyball came out, before it was cool to be in this space. Have stuck with hockey, so work with leagues, teams, players. Some of your favorite players you're probably watching in the NHL playoffs. Hopefully you're watching because it's been pretty dramatic. I also do media, sports books. So all the different verticals that you can repurpose data. We like to say we're data as a service, but I say a little sassy too. We have a little bit of software as a service. And so I live a lot on the engineering software space and as well on the data and content space.
Great. Robert?
I'm Rob Angarita, co-founder of BallerTV. For nearly a decade, we've live streamed more than 2 million youth sports games using portable cameras across more sports than anyone in the country. Just this last weekend alone, we did probably 35,000 games in basketball, volleyball, soccer. And then this past July, we launched BallerCam, our first direct-to-consumer product, meant to really capture that long tail in youth sports where our crews won't get to you. I use, even BallerCam is for my son's U14 weekly soccer game, right? That BallerTV would never cover. I'm a dad and a parent coach, so, what we do is pretty personal.
Colby?
Thanks. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for sticking around. I know this is the very, very last thing everybody wants to be doing. I'm Colby. I've been at Pixellot for 10 years, and we're in a very similar space to BallerTV. We focus on youth and amateur sports. Over the last 10 years, we have grown our business to the point that we're now filming over 1.5 million games a year using our automated solutions. A lot of that's in US high schools. A lot of you guys have watched Pixellot content, I am sure, for your kids or your family over the last 5-10 years. And now we're focused on expanding even further down, making sure that every single athlete can get content. Very similar mission to what Robert and BallerTV are doing. And we're excited to be here.
Great. I'm going to start with a quick icebreaker. Meghan, most underrated stat in hockey?
Ooh, underrated. I'm going to go with a goalie stat. Do we have some hockey fans out there? Can I see some hands? Okay, people are still alive. Great. That's awesome. With the NHL playoffs too, if you look at the matchups, usually it's the best goalie that ends up advancing in the series. So I like goals saved above expected, looking at the quality of shots that goaltenders are getting and what they can stop. I think that's really relevant.
Robert, we have to talk about your trek up here in your autonomous driving Tesla. It's a technology conference. How was that experience?
So I'm based out of Pasadena, and I decided to drive up to Vegas, and I'm a bit of a Tesla full self-driving evangelist.
Unpaid endorsement.
I literally felt like I was in the back of an Uber in terms of just like stress-free driving and my ability to get so much work done on my phone. It's changed the way I think about driving. So, the reality is that, the Tesla gets better with every mile driven, right? Like we're training it. And in many ways, like BallerTV, when people use us to get their games captured, you're essentially helping me make my system better. So,
Colby is a bit of a sci-fi fan. What in the early days might have felt like sci-fi and now it's just an average Tuesday for you?
The first thing that comes to mind is the scale at which we're operating, but I think probably even more sci-fi, and something that if you told me 10, even 5 years ago that I don't think I would have believed, was that using completely AI, we are able to take video and create completely personal highlights for athletes live. And that's something that when we first got into youth sports was a big challenge. And now, I think we'll talk about it a little bit later. It really feels like magic for the athletes. I mean, they are playing in a game, and as they're playing that game, their parents are being notified of their goals, of their shots, of their baskets. And after the game, the athletes are able to aggregate all those moments without having to do a bunch of work. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that feels a little bit like sci-fi.
Great. So new era of broadcasting. There's a lot of content here. I've heard, a lot people talking about youth sports. SBJ just released an article saying it's a $10 billion business that no one's talking about, although I think we're talking about it right now. Robert, maybe talk me through Wright. The whole encompassing, is it Wild Wild West? Who's got it? Who doesn't? What's the entitlements?
Sure. So I think the honest answer is that nobody really knows youth sports, and that's kind of what makes it interesting. At the pro and collegiate level, it's all figured out, right? The league owns the broadcast. The networks pay for it, and all the lawyers agree. In youth sports, you've got like 5 different parties making a claim to it. There's the platform, right? There's the venue, there's the event director, there's the family, there's the athlete, right? I think the terms of service favors the platform. The parents don't read it. And most of your athletes are minors, so they can't legally agree to anything anyway. I think what makes this different is in professional sports, even the collegiate now, it's like the game is the product, right? In youth sports, that footage is a memory. It's memory, right? A 12-year-old's game film isn't ESPN, right? It's a grandma with her iPad watching her grandkid. It's a totally different scenario. In our case, I'm not here trying to get the rights holder to hand over their content. At least with BallerCam, I'm giving them a way to have capture content in the first place, right? For long term.
And Colby, what are your thoughts on rights?
Well, Robert did hit the nail on the head there. And the bottom line is that it's complicated, and there's not always a right answer. I think, you're seeing that dynamic of the rights holder being the platform and the rights holder being the league operator who thinks that they can sell the rights of the games. And then you're seeing the parent who just wants to capture the content of their kid. It's very difficult to go into each scenario and to determine always what is right and what is wrong. And I think, we as a company that works with many venue operators to install cameras at their facilities, you also see that as a dynamic. Many of the venue operators feel that they own the ability to monetize the content in the venues that they've invested in and been able to bring people to. So I think, it's there's not one right solution to it. I think that we're seeing a lot of different companies try to solve this in different ways. But I do think, and I agree with Robert, the person that you have to put in the center of the experience is the athlete, and you have to do what's right for the athlete in the end. This is youth sports. We have a little bit more of a responsibility, I would say, to make sure that the athlete experience is a good one. And I think that over time, we're going to all have to make decisions in the industry that serve the athlete best.
So Meghan, you're on the other end of the spectrum on the pro level. Is there advice or what you've seen in that journey that can be applied here?
I think there's some learned experiences, but I also think the model sort of breaks at a certain point. Technology is advancing so quickly, and you can capture things in new ways that have never been done. But I think you have to rewrite the rules and have parameters of which people play in where you can find win-wins. Because I don't think that you're going to beat people that can be smart and monetize certain areas and scale. But I also think that you can think of the incentives. So even building some of these AI chatbots, where is all of this going? I think getting guardrails up early to figure out how to help the athletes, help the game grow and make everyone an athlete as they're on this player development journey. Because at 12, you don't know, right? When you're a youth athlete, some of them do end up becoming pros, but the ones that don't, they maybe learn managerial ideas or they develop in different ways. So I think the health and wellness, Aura Ring, the Whoops, I think all of them have broken apart that it's not just professional athletes that want data and want to make informed decisions. It's at all levels.
Yeah, I think there's this intersection, same parallel passing of all of it kind of coming together, because there's a consumption across all of it in different realms, in different ways, different needs. So moving into personalization and monetization. So you've got AI and cloud, the personalization of this whole journey that we just talked about. Now we're talking about the revenue that could go with it, some of the sensitivities in relation to monetizing what we're doing. So Colby, what are your thoughts on revenue generation? What does that look like? How do you monetize this area?
Well, I think that the bottom line is that in youth sports, personalization is what makes this content valuable, and it's what makes this entire, or at least our industry, tick. As a parent, of course, you're interested in watching the outcome of a full game, but what you're really interested in is understanding what happened with your child, what happened with the athlete. And it's the same thing with athletes all the way up into the elite levels of youth sports. I mean, they want to make sure that they win the game. Everybody cares about the content, but really they want to get better. They want to focus on themselves. And I think that we're seeing a huge advancement in the ability to create personalized content for these athletes and for these families. In the last year, like I touched on earlier, our ability to create personal highlights off any piece of content has given us, not just revenue opportunities. We don't want to always look at it on the revenue side, but like just a completely different value level for the families. I mean, we're seeing the level of engagement on these personal highlights 5-10x on what the engagement was on the whole game. And I think that's just going to be the future of the industry. And I guess like the last thing I would say is that it makes every game valuable. I think that there's always a parent of an athlete. It doesn't even matter. You could be a professional athlete. Those parents are still watching those games. And you could be a 5-year-old athlete and those parents care about that game. So I think that the ability to make this content personal, that's what gives every single game that is played worldwide value, and it gives it fans.
Robert?
Yeah, I think there's obviously lots of revenue opportunities here and a lot of excitement in the space. I think we established that like in the pro, the broadcasters pay, and in youth sports, the family pays. You may think of it does that mean it's less? But I think you need to understand that how the conversion is different. So if you think about pro, the audience is a stranger on a sofa, right? But when you think about youth, it's not a stranger, right? It's a family that loves that athlete. And I can tell you that love converts, right? In terms of personalization, we're entering this new world where like any parent athlete can take their footage and upload it to tons of different new services that can, give them further analysis, more insights. Heck, they can use it to make crazy types of edits. I mean, they can even just build something themselves, right, with their footage. That's different. And, like a 12-year-old today, if you think about this for a second, will graduate high school with a full record of their entire athletic career thus far. Okay? No generation has ever had this before.
Can't find one video.
I don't know what that means yet or what that unlocks, but, we're just one of the ones here capturing it.
Meghan, you've been putting data to some of this content for longer than any of us up here on the stage. What are your thoughts on monetization of this and opportunities?
Well, I think jumping on that perspective, I think there's a way to monetize just trends. You're able to like benchmark yourself when you're 12, when you're 15, when you're 18. You can understand player development, even on the injury side, right? Pre, post types of injuries. You can start now having a large data set that you could possibly pull from, or your physician can, or your trainer can. So you have a lot better gauge of how you're doing in your career or how that athlete is. From the other side, not just performance, I see so much space in the content, B2C, surfacing content back to people that they want to post on their own Instagrams and TikToks. And, grandma's following me on Facebook, so I better post my highlight reel. Or even like voiceovers, so many of the creators I work with now, you would think that the highest paid ones are at like pro athletes. But in many cases, they're the trick shots. They're doing all, they're skating backwards with a banana on their head, and it's amazing. And a monkey's like jumping, and it's great. Like, it's just a different element when you get into that creator side too. So it doesn't even have to be like smart, sophisticated data and content. It can be just like fun and lighthearted. And that does really well on YouTube Shorts and Twitch and all these other like streaming platforms.
I think it's really interesting in the NIL era, the opportunity as an athlete or self-promotion is a real cultural thing in this age group. And what are the tools that they need in order to be promoting themselves? I think it's significant here that we're talking about.
And it's flipped the script too, because it used to be like men dominated every single field of athletics, and actually women do better on the NIL, like in terms of like
really
Instagram
great
promotion.
We look at some of the women leaders in sports, it's exceptional, the growth there. So what does it take? Whether it's infrastructure, AI investment, what are the tools needed as we look forward? The next generation, what's the investment here? Meghan, maybe we can start with you on what you're seeing as from
I think it depends the segment that you want to go into. Certainly like AI and different technologies have changed how fast you can build. With that said, the capital and the resources needed and a strong strategic team that can lead you to where you need to actually satiate the market, not just having pipe dreams. I think you need all three in lockstep, but certainly, better, faster data collection for less money, more accurate ways to interface with productization so you can actually touch, feel, make clips, tie that back to data, animate it, have all these various pipelines that then you can promote and use the data, whether you're a league or a rights holder. I think there's so much to explore, but there's certainly all of those levers that you have to get right, and capital for sure, and the AI craze is one of them. I mean, engineers cost so much money, they're so specialized, and they like to float around too. So just making sure you have a team that can actually focus on your projects and get them to the finish line is challenging, I think, for any tech company and league.
Yeah. Robert, how about your investments?
So in my world, both BallerTV and BallerCam, we're dealing with portable hardware, right? I don't have a venue to slot something in, don't have dedicated power, I don't have Ethernet for stable internet. So all of those challenges have to be met, right? My BallerCam side, we built a consumer grade product that we priced under $300. It took us 2 years. And we view that lead time as a moat, right? And obviously to get into the consumer hardware space, you do need capital. So, I think on the infrastructure layer, one of the things that we do is all our AI processing is done on device in real time as you're filming, right? And, event detection, say like a goal in soccer, is done directly on the iPhone. I don't need to send it to the cloud. What does this mean? There's two things, right? Our cloud computing costs are dramatically lower. And number two, we'll be able to serve personalized highlights minutes after the game is over. So we're doing it on the device. Not hours, not days.
So you've got your production on wheels. Colby, you're in a little bit of a different scenario. So what's the infrastructure investment that you're seeing? What are you putting in place?
Well, I think Robert touched on a really interesting dynamic in the age of AI is that the world has completely changed. And I think as a lot of us wanting to be software companies over the last however many years, now in many ways, hardware and hardware that works and on-prem computing, that's a real moat. It's something that in the age of AI, it protects you. And like Robert touched on, having the ability to run a lot of that AI on the actual on-prem before it gets to the cloud, it's a huge advantage, both from a cost standpoint and from a time standpoint, which is something that we do a lot of with our fixed facilities. We have 15,000 computers with NVIDIA graphics cards at high schools around the country. And that allows us to be able to operate at a very low cost. I guess the next thing that is interesting on that would be, I think that when you're thinking about what this like AI is going to give you the ability to do, having a very scalable cloud infrastructure is still important. For us, we're able to run anywhere from 10,000 to 75,000 games in one night. I think the most we've ever had is 50,000 games, so we can go even higher. And I think that with AI, the ability to be able to scale past those numbers is just going to get even bigger as you're processing highlights, as you're processing more content. So those would be the two things I would touch on.
Great. So infrastructure moves into the conversation about AI. I think we all agree each one of you has components where you still need a human in the loop. And so Meghan, for you, you've obviously got a ton of things that you're doing in relation to the networks. You're in front of the camera, you're behind the camera, you've got programs that are overlaying on the video. How are you seeing AI play in that space?
Definitely servicing things that you wouldn't necessarily have your eye on, especially in the short term. So when you're doing a show or in media, you have your traditional stats pack and storylines where AI just allows you to point things out a lot quicker. And I feel like that's the one nice thing with the efficiencies is it does make it a lot more seamless. So a lot of what I think people are hesitant about is that it will take over, right? Take over that human element. And I just see it very additive where you can actually give back that time, give that time back to producers, give that time back to talent, to then trust in what they're using, whether that's like a dashboard or different types of tools to help them prepare and to prep highlight reels. So for me, I just see AI as something that in the immediate term can take away a lot of the stress and what is already difficult to produce so much content. Everyone wants more content faster. I think it can be a lot more mindful and a lot more context dependent. So you can have a lot of more color, visuals. If you're describing something, bring up that exact scenario, model that in 3D, have a way to do that very quickly. And all of those I think are really relevant in sports. Something happens, it's very interesting. 2 minutes, not as interesting. Halfway through the game, no one cares. So I think speed's a huge way that AI can help improve a lot of that.
That's a great segue, Robert. You talked about the speed, game's over, your instant production. How is AI helping you deliver those elements?
Sure. So I think first you need to ask yourself, how is your AI getting trained? We're fortunate we have a decade of youth sports footage. And I personally think that, youth sports is a harder problem to solve than professional sports, namely because when you're talking about venues where the lighting is all over the place, right? It's variable. You're talking about convention centers that have courts set up stacked behind each other. You're talking about soccer fields where there's one going this way and another going this way. And you're trying to make sure the ball doesn't get confused by the others, right? And don't even get me started on the uniforms, right? The uniforms are all over the map in youth sports, right? In terms of trying to identify numbers and whatnot. So we have, I think, really, really large data set to do. And, no one's going to be able to replicate that in 6 months, right? I think also with AI, you need to think about okay, in our case, we have hardware and we talk a lot about the fact that you can't go to Claude and prompt hardware, right? So that gives us a huge advantage. And then I think there's this concept that gets thrown around about, are you AI natives, right? Are you AI first? What the heck does that mean, right? I think there's a simple test, right? We like to talk internally. If you can turn off your AI and you can still ship, AI is a feature. But if you can't track the ball, if you can't magically create a highlight, you're AI native. And so that's one way to look at it. The other way is from the product development cycle. And if AI is, I think if you set up your product development organization where humans are kind of building a system or rules, and you let AI run the plays, that's totally different. That's AI native. That's a different category of a company. And you move really hard, you move really fast, but it's hard to set up. So.
And Colby, what about you?
I think Robert touched on a lot there. I think, being AI native is a really funny term, like you said. I think for both of our businesses, if the AI turned off for 30 seconds, our businesses would collapse. That's the basis of our product, and it's been the basis of our solution since day one, 10 years ago, when we first brought it to market. I think, as you're looking at these organizations and how people are starting to use AI day to day, I think that is probably where we're seeing, at least in our business, the biggest shift. I mean, the ability to deliver new products internally, the ability to manage systems is just completely turned over overnight. I'm not the first person to talk about this in the last 6 months in America, but I think, besides that, I think Robert touched on the rest.
Great. When thinking about what's real, what's marketing, to your point about AI, native being a bolt-on, what's real in there, and what do you see in the next 5 years? So maybe Meghan, start with you. When you're looking forward, 5 years is a long time when it comes to technology, but what are the trends that you're seeing that are real and tangible?
I do think 5 years is a really long time horizon now. It used to be pretty easy to jump out 3-4 years. Now I'm not sure. We're very much 3-6 months. Like, technology is just rapidly adapting. And at some points, I'm like, I wish I could just tear down some of our tech debt too. So I do think if you can be more nimble in this era and have like groups that can work on certain products that you may want to deprecate, like that could be a way to move fast and build in like different languages or use different types of models that just come up. So I think the trend will be speed and new technology. And if you can prepare data sets and allow people to build on top of what you have, I think you can make a lot of ground, even as smaller leagues or smaller groups. So I think the ability to bring new tech, new environments, new vendors in will be very key to move really quickly.
And so, Colby, maybe I know that 5 years is a really long time as a parent. Well, none of this existed 5 years ago. My kids were athletes. So talk about, is that even a life cycle to consider?
I mean, I think 5 years for us is the rate that things are changing right now. It's almost an impossible distance to think about. I think what is real and what's not. I think one of the things that we know is real that is not to do with AI is that we feel that we have a real tangible asset. We're relying on something that is real in the world, which is youth sports events. These are things that are like a ground truth, something that people will always care about. And so that is still going to be the case in 5 years. That people will always care about their kids' games. And that's something that for us is comforting, I would say, in this sort of back and forth world, even with the rights discussion that we had before, not knowing where that's going to end up. I think that with a focus on something that will always be important to a consumer, it gives you some level of protection. So that would probably be the main one. I think there's also this sense that, platforms are dead, everything. We can all build our own custom technology for literally everything that we do. I think that there's a little bit, we're still going to want some stuff. We're not all going to want to build every iPhone app that we use ourselves for our custom needs. So I do think that there's going to be a little bit of a slowdown there. But yeah.
Robert?
If we're here in 5 years and we've survived Skynet, I'm going to be pretty happy. Yeah, I think there's a conference happening at the same time right now, NAB, and someone was telling me that there's this robot that they're showing that's going to be out there to be able to film youth sports. I mean, that's not a crazy thought in 5 years, right? Like a robot comes out there and just follows your kid. And it's crazy to think about it, but that's like the direction that industry.
Can you buy a robot for your kid? Just follow it around?
I mean, they think the future is a robot basically being like a personalized tutor, if not teacher, to your kid. So obviously it might also follow you in recording sports, but 5 years is crazy, right? It's like, who the heck knows, right? It's just so much has changed in the last 6 months. Internally for us, it's hard to know like what we're going to do 2 years from now, right?
Yeah.
my board will ask me for something. I'm like, what? Like in this day and age, like here's a 6-month plan. That's all I can see right now, right? Because we have to stay nimble and things are changing.
So maybe flip the script in the last couple of minutes that we have a quick fire of what's lagging then. What is something that you wish would be moving faster and, is going to catch up or you've been waiting for that isn't really there yet? So maybe Meghan, I'll start with you.
I just think scale in sports, like I think there's a lot of hesitation, even though it's forward thinking in a lot of ways. The amount of capital you need and the amount of properties that you end up touching, there's always these like hesitations into getting into tech too much. So I think just having these forward-thinking groups that can really push that pace, that's what I would hope for in the near future. But I'll also jump on that Tesla thing. My daughter is obsessed with Waymos now, and like how used to now she is not seeing someone driving. It's like wild. So I think to appeal to the younger crowd too, you have to move quickly because they are onto YouTube, TikTok, all of these like clippy contents away from sports if you don't capture them young.
Right. None of us are cool anymore. Robert, what's lagging for you?
I'm sorry, what's what?
What's lagging? What's something that you would want to move faster that isn't catching momentum or?
What's lacking?
Or is taking too long to kind of move through approvals? Or is there anything in, we talked about 5 years being too long. What's taking the opposite direction?
I mean, and I guess in the context of youth sports, and each sports has its nuances, is just kind of getting everybody to agree with each other. It's funny, like there's a lot of startups here talking about this idea of a universal athlete identity or something, right? Like that's like the next frontier. I would love to see it happen. I would love to see it from my son, right? But it's like people will need to play nice with each other. And so far, in our space, at least in youth sports, it's still kind of fragmented and elbows are out. So,
good one. Colby?
Yeah, I think jumping on that, in the US, we do not have an organized youth sports infrastructure. You see people talking about it all the time. And I think there's a lot of models that have worked in other countries that have a federation model, and they have a lot more organization that I think provides a better experience for youth athletes in many ways. So that would be one thing. I guess the second one would be, which is a little bit more on the business side. I think that sponsorship is something that, at least in our business, is, I would say, lagging a little bit. There's a lot of studies that have come out that have said that sponsorship in youth sports is one of the absolute most profitable places that a brand can be. And I still think that there's a lot of reticence to oversaturate the market, rightly so, with sponsorship and advertising. But I do think that it's underutilized. I think there's a huge opportunity for brands that really want to get in front of this very, very niche audience that's extremely engaged to have a good experience there. So that would be the other one.
That's great. Certainly want to thank you for your time today. This is a really fascinating journey of the tools and opportunities that you're bringing to the table. And as we think of youth athletes and they're out there to have a good time. There's a whole health and wellness opportunity. Then there's a transition. Maybe they want to use sports to bring themselves further in life, whether that's the opportunity to fund their education by playing a sport. There's a potential pro level. And these are tools that, when we talk about 5 years again, never existed before. And the movement and all the activity here over the last 2 days has been great to see. And I'm super excited about it. And just want to thank you for joining today. Appreciate it. And thanks, everyone. Off to the sports bar.